Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Mad Dog, Mike Angus, on Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time. Your host, Stu Palmer.
Well, after a 2-week hiatus of SWP, we are back for episode 123, and my guest today comes from the Big Apple, New York. It's veteran American wrestler Damien Darling. Damien was active for many years on the independents in America. He's got some good stories with Joey Janela as well. I love stories of the road from these guys. I've never been one for scandal or exposés on SWP, but Damien was happy to talk about his relationship with Tammy Sytch, aka Sunny. A lot of bad press came his way. She made stuff up, but he has his side of the story, and it was great, and it was nice of him to be open and honest about what occurred from his point of view with Sunny. He had some amazing stories with Scott Hall. He went on the road with Scott Hall. They were really close. Loads of great stories with the late, great Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon, as well. So, without further ado, my guest for episode 123 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast, SWP, is none other than veteran American wrestler all the way from New York, Damien Darling. Enjoy. My guest, we are back in the good old US of A, a man who is in New York as we speak. He's on his way to work. He spared some time to come on Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's veteran of the ring, Mr. Damien Darling, on Stu's Wrestling Podcast here in the UK. We're going transatlantic again, Damien.
See, I love when you're talking to somebody else from another part of the world, because you'll pick up different language and lingo and,
Damien, you've obviously been in wrestling for a long time. I know, obviously, you've got to know some of the guys high up in wrestling, and, you've got some great experiences. So, yeah, you starting out as a professional wrestler, man, and the climate was very different to what it is today. We're only talking 14 years, man, but things evolve, things change. So, yeah, you getting in the business, man, and starting out, how was that for you?
So I think you said it best. The wrestling business is always evolving, always changing. And when you're a fan and you hear that, I don't know if it really connects. However, when you are actively wrestling and trying to make that your career, I think it is relevant, and it's super important. When you see guys like Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho, who have reinvented themselves to stay relevant and to stay on top of an always evolving business. So I always think that's incredible. Those are a few things that when I do watch the show, it was a dream come true. I was a wrestling fan, like all of us. I remember being in the 4th grade, sitting in the classroom, pretending to take notes, but actually be practicing my autograph. So it was definitely, so it was definitely something within me that wanted to happen. And then, I played sports as a kid. I always used to wrestle with my friends in the yard, in the backyard, at a park, with the toy belts, whenever I could. And I think it's fair to say that I was always a little bit more focused on that than some of the other guys. Like, it was something I was driven to do.
Yeah, man.
So then years later, when I was the right age, when my body through the gym was in the right stage, I progressed and went to wrestling schools and were trained by a handful of local guys that taught me the basics and got my foot in the door and my foot in the ring.
Amazing. Like, from a young age, you knew, man. And then that's I can't relate. I can't relate in the sense of wrestling, but the fan in me and being young and impressionable. Of course, I can. Because I did the same as you, man. I had all the figures. Watched on it. It was amazing. It was amazing for us as kids.
A few friends and I, we laugh about it. We say that it used to be better. but you could say that about a lot of things, right? And then, the world used to be better. Music used to be better. Yeah. I don't know. It's and
the kids, the kids today will be the same as well. They'll look back in 20 years and say it was better when we were doing it, man.
Sure.
Absolutely, man. So in terms of training, I'm going to ask you about training now. When you got in there, man, how was it for you initially? Was it hard to grasp it, or having a being very grounded and knowing wrestling? Did you find it relatively easy early on?
Training is, however, I was so excited to just be involved. I was so excited to be in the ring, and I was so passionate about what I was doing that you could have beat my body up all day, every day. I was still coming back the next. So that's what it was like for me, And I always had goals. When I look back on it now, I always set small goals. Like when I was training to be a wrestler, I just wanted to be on the show. And then you were good enough to be on the show. So then you wanted to be good enough to be on the flyer, right? And be promoted. And then before you know it, fast forward, now you're on all the flyers. Now you're in the main event. Now you're working the guys that just came off TV or that you used to watch when you were a kid. So, it evolved very quickly for me.
Natural progression on your end then.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just clicked. I tell people whenever I'm asked about my wrestling career, I go, sometimes it's hard for me to explain because it was like 110 miles an hour. All of a sudden, I was training one day and then fast forward, a month and now I'm rocking and I'm going and I'm doing my thing.
Obviously, people work on different time frames, don't they? Some guys get in very early and can do it right away. And then other guys I've heard from who I've had on the show 2.5 years until they had their first match.
Sure. You hear guys like Damien Darling SWP who worked for 20 years to get in the wrestling business, right? And he didn't start till 40 and everybody told him not to do it. And then, here I am telling you that I trained for a couple of months and then I was rocking and rolling shortly after that. Then again, I'm also a lot better looking than Dallas.
Yeah, I'm not of that orientation myself, but no, you're a good looking chap, mate. I'll give you that. I'm not trying to inflate your ego either in the process here. But yeah, also what I'd like to ask, you're working. I'm assuming it was East Coast Promotions at the time. How was that? How was that for you early on, working the different promotions?
It was exactly what I wanted the wrestling business to be. It's what I had dreamed of. Traveling. For me, and I'm still the same way. I love to travel. So nothing energizes me and excites me more than packing my bag and going to an airport and checking into a hotel. It doesn't even matter where I'm going. It's just going somewhere, really brings me to a good place. So I used to love it, man. Wrestling, packing your bags, going out for the weekend, going out for a week or so, picking up the guys, whatever it was, and just going places that you never thought you'd go, that you never really wanted to go to, and finding yourself there and meeting new people and, being in interesting situations. And, there's a lot of good road stories with me because every time, no matter where I was, it was a party. It was a blast. It was a good time.
I'm gonna have to pick you on this one now. So right, some stories that come to mind pretty instantaneously.
So I had taken a trip down to Warsaw, Indiana, which is a pretty good, which is a healthy drive from where I'm from. And the promoter had us travel in a big van. So it was a bunch of guys from the area. Myself, Joey Janela, Kyle the Beast, Corey Havoc, and a bunch of other dudes. So there was maybe like 12 of us in this van. It was a big van. So we traveled down to Warsaw, Indiana. We do the show. The show is great. It was one of those kind of places where, like the wrestling show being in town was a big deal. So the whole town was at the wrestling show. So, me being me and the guys that I was hanging with, we're asking fans, where's the bar for after the show? Where's the after party? So they point us in the direction of this downtown bar called Downtown, right? It's one bar in one town, and it's downtown. This is what kind of town this is. So we go to the after party, and as soon as we walk in, the place erupts because they know the wrestlers just entered. And a lot of the people that were at the bar were at the show. So it's a very cool experience to be a wrestler, right? I mean, fast forward, I wound up having a couple of drinks. I wound up getting a little frisky. I wound up taking a piss in the ice machine. Now, while I'm taking a piss in the ice machine, this couple is taking a picture of themselves. So you can see me in the background pissing in the ice machine. A couple of days later, we leave town, we get back home, and I'm getting all these phone calls and messages that are like looking for me. So I guess the owner of the bar or somebody must have found out about me pissing in it. And it was a very big deal because it costs thousands of dollars. Because think about it, if you piss in the ice machine, now you've just pissed in the ice cubes, which now go in everybody's drinks at the bar. So you just pretty much fucking ribbed the whole bar by pissing in their cups. And now in order to clean the machine, you've got to like pump it out and refiltrate it. It was way more of a big deal than I meant. I just meant to piss. Long story short,
yeah,
I'm not allowed back in Warsaw, Indiana. They don't want me there.
I'm going to call you Damien the Miscreant rather than Damien Darling for that little escapade. For that escapade.
Yeah. Sometimes I get excited and, the bad brother comes out.
It's rock and roll, man. It's rock and roll. That's what that is. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, just a side note, Joey Janela, I've got to be fair to the guy because you spoke about him being in the van. I think he's done fantastic. He's kind of gone on his own terms, hasn't he? Leaving AEW, and the man. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary shit amongst the IWC.
I have a lot of respect for Joey. Joey and I come from the same area. Pretty much, grew up together in the business. He has been super successful, probably more successful than any of us ever thought he was ever going to be. And like I said earlier, dreams come true, and God bless Joey. His dream, if it hasn't come true, is it's coming true. So he's doing his thing and he's doing what he needs to do. And Joey's always been like this. Joey's always been a do it my way kind of guy, which I think agree or disagree, you have to respect.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. The match of Ambrose, when they had the match at AEW, I know it's like 2-3 years ago now. Just like the guy, like you say, and I commend him as well. When anyone's ever started on him on social media, he'll back himself up, man. He doesn't go mute. Yeah. He'll tell people straight, man. Which that's endearing. That's cool, man.
Yeah, and considering he's not really a tough guy, because he's always gotten his ass kicked every fight I've ever seen him in. He's still got a mouth on him, God bless him.
Yeah, man. Were you going back to you? Were you doing it full time? Back then in the days.
Nobody was really doing it full time, right? Because unless you're working for, I mean, even if you work for WWE now, you're wrestling 3 days a week. And if you work for AEW, I mean, it's less than that. So nobody's really full-time anymore like they were back in the day. Back in the day, the 90s, the 80s, and so forth. But I mean, I still had a pretty solid schedule. That was one of the things that I was proud to say. Whereas, you know, some guys consider themselves wrestlers because they wrestled once or twice a month. I was wrestling 3-4 times every weekend. And that's what that's what I was driven to do. I wanted to travel. I wanted to wrestle as much as I could, especially in my younger stage. So that was what my schedule was like. You know, wrestling Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You know, doing double shots, which means you do 2 shows in a night or in a day.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much our schedule. It was a weekend thing.
Yeah, that was cool, man. Though you did it on your own terms, man. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I was going to ask you. Obviously, you know a lot of legends within the business as well. I know you were close with Scott Hall. Just any stories about Scott? Yeah, a bit open ended.
So when I first started watching wrestling, it was that Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair Survivor Series angle on Primetime Wrestling, where, famously Mr. Perfect pours the water over Bobby the Brain Heenan's head. So that was the first time I ever watched wrestling. And I was enamored. I was, like a lot of other fans, first time I watched wrestling, I was sucked in. And Razor was my guy. Razor was my favorite wrestler. The first wrestling t-shirt I ever got, my dad bought me, was the yellow Razor Ramon Oozing Machismo t-shirt.
Yeah,
my favorite wrestling toy, my Hasbro as a kid, was the purple Razor Ramon. So, fast forward, I was wrestling in Florida, and I wound up getting introduced to Scott Hall. And, now it kind of comes full circle, right? And Scott, he always admitted that he liked hanging out with the younger guys. He enjoyed being the veteran, the mentor. And I'm proud to say that I was one of his young boys, which in Japan is a term they use for your student. Scott was great. I loved Scott. We were very close. And it was really a blessing for me in my life to go from being a fan to being a friend to being like family. I love him and I miss him.
Amazing, man. Going back to him professionally, the selflessness, Damien, it was never about, he could have had the world title how many times over, but he cultivated younger talent, didn't he? He was, and that, other people just go into business for themselves, don't they? We've heard about it time and time again. That selflessness, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. He was always so willing to watch somebody's match. He was always willing, whether they wanted to or not, critique the match. And if he liked you, you knew he liked you, because he'd grab you and he'd tell you, let's go out for dinner, and he'd buy you a meal and sit you down and smarten you up. And I think that's something that sort of gets lost in the business these days, because I think so many people are out for, a lot of guys go to a show, they want to wrestle their match, make their money, and get home. It's the future. And you hear these stories of back in the day, right? The 70s and the 80s, the Harley races, the Dusty Rhodes, the Eddie Grahams, doing this for the younger guys. Then somewhere it kind of got lost. Scott was always that kind of guy. Scott was a wrestling fan that turned into a wrestling legend.
Yeah, just can't. So sad, man. So sad. you know, what happened just a few short months ago, man, because just, you know, amazing. And even when he's come over here to shows, you know, he takes people under his wing, man. I know people that know him really well over here say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He was going through his own shit, you know.
He loved going over there. I believe he was working with Paige's parents, right?
Yes, World
Ricky.
Association of Wrestling. Yeah.
Yes, he loved going over there. Scott and I were close, and whenever he used to come back from those tours, he always had like a little extra. I don't know if he had a girlfriend out there or what the deal was, but whenever he came back, he was in a much better mood than when he left.
Just a suave man, mate. You can't teach that, can you?
100%.
You've either got it or you haven't. Unfortunately, I haven't got it, but there we go. That's just one of them things, man. Damien, I've got to ask you. I know you were with Sonny for many, you know, it's a long time ago now, really, when you think about it. And look, I've asked off camera about this. If I could ask you about her, we know she's going through some stuff at the moment, but you were with her, you know, for quite a while, and just Sonny, man, and more currently, what's happened to her, which has been in the press across the world, man.
Yeah, you know, we weren't together that long. We were together maybe a year or two. However, it feels a lot longer. Unfortunately, you know, Tammy was dealing with some shit when I was with her, which I wasn't aware of when we first had gotten together. You know, after a couple of months of dating somebody, you know, like anybody, you know, you get to know them more. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's hiding something in a relationship, you know, it's gonna start to peek its head after a while. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened between Tammy and I. She's an alcoholic. She was when we were together. I stood by her when she went to rehab, and then when she got out of rehab, there were a few incidents where she would mess up, go back to drinking, and it would result in an arrest. And then I stood by her through multiple arrests. And then finally, you know, like my therapist said, when you get tired of the roller coaster ride of up and down on somebody else's roller coaster, eventually you say, you know, I want to get off the ride. And that's what happened to me. I said one day that I just had enough, and it was over. And you know, unfortunately, you know, in addition to Tammy's alcoholism, she's got this side of her that's not a very good person. So when I was no longer on Tammy's roller coaster ride, I was now an enemy. So Tammy went on, you know, on Damien's the bad guy route for a long time. And she said a lot of things that weren't true. And she said a lot of things that didn't portray me to be in a good light, which is why I've chosen to do this interview, and why I've chosen to do other interviews, and why I've chosen to be more spoken now, because I think now is an important time to let the truth be told. Absolutely. Let the facts be out in the open, and you know, let's give the public the opportunity to let them know who the real Tammy Sytch is, what the real situation is, and I hope more importantly the jury in her situation, you know, understand that and use that when it comes time to sentencing her.
Not to say that you could have foreseen that she would have killed someone being behind the wheel, but could you tell it was only a matter of time something bad was going to occur? You know, a year or so being with her, you know, you've seen it. You were in scenarios. You were together, man. You've seen it. You know, right there, and then. You know, but could you have foreseen that this was going to happen? Something so bad.
100%. Yes. I did. My mother did. People around us did. Everybody I talk to that knows Tammy has always said she's going to kill herself or she's going to kill somebody else.
Do you think, going back to obviously when she was so prevalent in the 90s, do you think it just got it got into her head the way she was, and then it's just fueled it? Or do you think it might have been that she's never fully got over Chris Candido passing?
So here's the thing, right? As far as her success in the 90s, her career from start to finish, as successful as she was to the end, only lasted 3 or 4 years. Tammy was 95. By 99, her career was done.
Yeah.
Right? That's 4 years. However, she wasted her career in the wrestling business. Vince McMahon and WWF, they did not use her at a certain point. They chose to use other women because she was an issue. So, I mean, I don't think that you can look at her time as a top star in the business and she has today. Additionally, I've become acquaintances with Johnny Candido, who's Chris Candido's brother.
Yeah.
Who was a tremendous help for me when I was going through that ugly breakup with Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's had these problems with Chris before he passed. I'm not going to speak about their relationship in front of my business.
Of course. I wouldn't
the stories I would tell Johnny, he would shake his head and tell back to me that the same shit happened to Chris. These problems, these mental health issues that she's carrying around go way back before the WWF. And it's sad that, I broke up with Tammy 10 years ago. She's still got the same problems with the new guy. She was arrested before the car accident for almost stabbing him with scissors.
He deserves a medal. Do you know? Well, as do you, man. As do you. And as you say, misreported, stuff made up. It defames you when you haven't done anything wrong. I feel for you because you haven't done anything wrong, but she's portrayed you in such a bad light. So I'm glad you can speak about this.
I mean, listen. If you've ever been in a relationship, you know how it is. There's good times, there's bad times. That's just sort of how it works. It just sucked because Tammy, who is a public figure, can go on social media and she can type whatever she wants. She could create any scenario, and there are, it's a large mass of people that now read this. I'm sure some of them know better than to take her word as truth. However, it still gets thrown out there, and it's still your name being thrown through the mud. So that's what I went through.
That's it. I think, we can. You've covered that. We could go over and over it, couldn't we, man? Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, especially with me here, and I appreciate you doing that, man. On to some positives. We'll switch genres. I know you're a huge Guns N' Roses fan. And I know this, obviously, from what you've posted, going to shows, and obviously in more recent years, they got together. They got back together. We've been waiting for Slash and Axl for years. I know Guns N' Roses toured without Slash. They did the UK festivals over here years ago, 20 years ago, probably, when they had Buckethead. But yeah, I know you're a huge fan of GNR, man. So yeah, just your experiences of GNR and some of your favorite tracks, man.
Dude, I'm one of the biggest Guns N' Roses fans. I am like a crazy Axl Rose fan. When I was younger, entering high school, my friend Scott introduced me to them. I think he may have even bought me my first CD of Appetite for Destruction. And as soon as I put it on, it was the soundtrack to my life. And I can honestly say I relate to every song. I have that kind of connection to the music, with the category. So, I take every opportunity I have to see them when they come to the area. I love the shows. They're great. The fans are a blast. We were talking a little offline about how, when they come to the area, we'll throw tailgate parties outside the venue before the show. And, I usually go pretty all out. We'll put up a big tent, we'll barbecue, we'll get drinks going. And I've met people from all over the world. And I've established some real friendships with these people from, that originate from our love of Guns N' Roses. So, it's all pretty cool. As far as some of my favorite tracks, Night Train, Estranged, It's So Easy, Locomotive, and I'll admit, I love Chinese Democracy.
Hey, that's fine. That had, some bad press. It had a lot of bad press as it goes, but that's just how it is, man. You're not allowed to come back. You're not allowed to release stuff later on. It's just the way people are in it. But you like it, and that's all that matters, man. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I think there was a time. Sorry, Better, Catcher in the Rye. I thought those were all good.
Absolutely, man.
I mean, maybe not the radio friendly music that they produce today. However, if you're a Guns N' Roses fan, those songs sort of are eclectic, and I feel like they all tell a story, and I liked it.
Amazing, man. Amazing. What about Slash? Obviously, doing with the Conspirators. Obviously, Miles Kennedy on vocals. I know you're a staunch GNR guy, but I have to admit, I've enjoyed. Miles Kennedy's got one of the best voices in rock and roll. Alter Bridge and his solo stuff that he's done. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of what they've done, and I'm glad Slash took him on full time to do the vocals after collaborating on the early album.
Dude, 100%. I saw them a few months ago at the Beacon Theater here in New York City. Miles Kennedy with Slash. I thought it was a great show. I think Miles Kennedy's got one of the best voices in rock and roll. Reminds me a little bit of Sebastian Bach. Yeah. And I love his covers. They do a Rocket Man that's excellent. And then Miles Kennedy, he sings those Guns N' Roses songs on point.
Absolutely, man. Halo is one of my favorites by them. That's a tune. That's a tune, man. His voice on that is incredible, man. It's good to talk a bit of music on this show, It's good to go into other genres of life, of entertainment.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of these interviews, but to be perfectly honest with you, I know I'm a wrestler, but I mean that's what I did. That's not who I am. No. So if I could do an interview and if I have to talk about wrestling the whole time, you're probably gonna lose me, because I'm not gonna be interested in talking about myself, let alone wrestling, for an hour or something.
That's cool, man. That's cool. No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Who else in rock that stand out for you at the tippy top?
So I'm going to pull Scott Hall back because Scott and I love Elvis. And we used to, so during the pandemic, Scott was home a lot, and we would FaceTime each other during the week, like on a Thursday night, and we'd call it a brother night, and we would watch Elvis together and FaceTime each other. And so I'm a big Elvis fan. Me and Scott had always planned to go to Graceland together. I bought us these matching Elvis sunglasses, but we never got to go. I'm gonna make my way to Graceland, hopefully this summer, and it'll be a trip.
That's nice, man. That's all paying homage to one of the most. He's. I know he's highly esteemed within wrestling, but he's also underrated in my opinion. And I'm glad you got to share so much time with Scott Hall, man. As a fan, that's amazing from my end to hear just a little bit, because I'm sure there's hundreds of stories you could have shared.
So we were in Tampa, Florida, doing a wrestling show. After the show, being in Tampa, which is a big party town, I asked Scott, I said, you want to go out or you want to go back to the hotel? So Scott looks at me and he's like, you want to go out? Let's go out. I was with a couple of friends. I was with my girlfriend at the time. Scott opens the trunk, opens his bag, takes his sweatpants off in the parking lot and puts on a pair of go out jeans, So now Scott puts his jeans on in the parking lot. And I'm like, Scott, his fans are out. He goes, I don't give a shit. We're out of here. So we go out to this town, Ybor in Tampa, which is the party strip, all the bars, all the clubs. So now you're walking into these clubs with Scott Hall. People notice, right? He's this 6'7" guy with the long black hair. He's got the drip going on. And, if you were a fan and you look at him, you go like, is that Razor Ramon? He's wearing an NWO shirt. So it's not like you can, get a misunderstanding. It's Scott Hall. So we get to the club and it's a karaoke club. So Scott is watching these people get up on stage and sing. And then he's like, wait, he goes, they're not a band, it's a karaoke? I go, yeah. He goes, you going to sing? I go, I can sing. He goes, what are you going to sing? I go, I'll sing Elvis. He goes, what song? I go, pick a song, Scott. I'll sing whatever you want. He goes, always on my mind. I go, okay, Scott. So, I finish my drink. I get my liquid courage. I get on stage at this karaoke club and I sing Elvis, always on my mind. Scott, God bless him, is standing by the stage, dancing, singing along. I mean, it's pretty funny. As a matter of fact, I have the video on YouTube. So if anybody wants to check it out, they could look up.
I've not seen it, and I've seen a lot of your stuff across social media, following you for so long. I will make sure I watch it, man. Sorry, I cut in then.
It's on YouTube. You could look it up. Damien Darling, always on my mind. I apologize for the singing. It wasn't like something I had planned to do that night. but when Razor Ramon requests a song, you get your ass on that stage and sing.
I've got a good story, actually. We're in New Orleans for WrestleMania 30, right? And we'd split off the lads in the group. And a lad goes to one of the convenience stores and he comes back. He had the good grace to tell me, I've just met Scott Hall at the convenience store. I said, bullshit. He goes, do you want to see the photo? I said, what? He stopped for a photo. You weren't at a convention or anything. And lo and behold, he's got a photo with Scott Hall, which is his profile picture to this day. And I was gutted. I was not with Ant when he met him. And he said he was amazing. He said the guy was amazing. He didn't have to stop. He didn't expect him to stop, but he did. And he took a photo, man.
See, I told you about how Scott was my favorite wrestler as a kid. So when I hung out with Scott, especially in the beginning, when I first met him, I didn't like to ask him a lot of wrestling questions or questions about his career, because I didn't want him to feel like I was a fan. I wanted him to feel more like we were colleagues or friends. But I always loved that when I would hang out with him, other fans would ask questions. So if I hung out with Scott, we went out to lunch, we met fans. We would always, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. We'd start talking and then they would ask the questions. So I, from hanging out with Scott, have heard a million questions answered that I didn't have to ask, So I don't know. It sort of was cool in a way. And another perk was when people would send him drinks. And when Scott was on his Good Boy program, I would intercept the drinks. Yeah. So we go to a restaurant, go to a bar. He'd be drinking diet Cokes.
It's amazing.
And I guess they would think he was drinking like a Jack and Coke. So I would take the shots or I would take the beers. And Scott would always say, "You got to drink it. You got to drink it." So I would wind up getting piss hammered drunk. It was just a perk. Amazing. It was just a perk of hanging out with Scott, you know? Yeah.
A win-win for Damien. I tell you, a win-win for Damien.
Yeah, it was all good. It was all good. One time, oh God. So there's so many stories. See, I know, man. I know we're limited. I know we're limited on time. Brother, I've lost my car hanging out with Scott. I've pissed my pants hanging out with Scott. I mean, we had a lot of good times.
Yeah, man. Amazing, man. Amazing. Favorite match. I know full well what I think. I've got an inkling what you're going to say is favorite match, but my favorite match before you use yours is him and Brett Royal Rumble 1993. And you know, he was only in the promotion 7 months, and he was straight in, wasn't he? He got his title shot, man. And that match, it stands out to me now as a kid. Bret Hart was my favorite, still is. And that's one that stands out for me. But yeah, I think I've got an inkling where you're going to go with your favorite match, or you're going to curveball me. I think you're going to curveball me with it.
I think I'm going to curveball you.
Yeah,
I'm going to curveball you. It's Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid versus the Smoking Guns for the tag team titles. I'll tell you why. Number one, I love tag team wrestling. 2, it's an extraordinary tag team match, because all 4 guys are great workers. Number 3, I love a tag team that looks like a tag team. In that match, Razor and 1-2-3 Kid were matching purple. I love that. I know you probably would have thought that I'd say WrestleMania 10 or any of those other really famous matches, but I'm telling you, check out Razor and 1-2-3 Kid, Smoking Guns. It's a banger.
More fool me for thinking you were going to go for the obvious choice there. That's on me. That's on me. But
I think it was. I think that match from an In Your House or something. Great match.
Yeah, I can remember. Yeah. I can remember it. To be fair, you were at 80s WrestleCon. Tommy Fierro and the gang and all that had the show recently. Some great photos of the guys in wrestling gear, cosplay, etc., etc. It looked like you had an absolutely fantastic time. I've had Jock Rougeau on recently. Get well, Jock, as well. I know he's going through some medical stuff at the moment. He was there. Mm-hmm. How was 80s Con, man? How was 80s Con there? It looked amazing for us over here.
So I've known Tommy for years. So nowadays, I'm not actively wrestling. I'll wrestle a few shows a year, just to give myself something to train for. To stay in the gym, stay active. But when Tommy has his shows or has his conventions, that's something that I want to be involved in because it's fun. I'll see a lot of the old guys. I'll see some friends, and it's something to do on a Saturday for me. But yeah, it was a great time. It was a great turnout. Obviously you see a lot of the old timers, right? So I got to meet Jesse the Body Ventura.
Oh man.
So Jesse walks in. I'm sitting around drinking a cup of coffee. Hey Jesse, not just Jesse, but a lot of fans were addressing him as Jesse. Jesse was a governor here in Minnesota. Yeah, so when I met Jesse, good morning, Governor Ventura. So respect. He takes his jacket off and he's got nice arms. He's got sizable arms. So I compliment his arms. I go, oh, Governor, your, brother looking good. He comes over to me and now he starts talking to me about his workout routine, how he's riding the bike for like 20 miles, a week. And now he's telling me about his whole workout routine. It was cool.
Amazing. Still going strong, man.
Yeah, he's 70-something years old, so good for him. And I met Jacques. Jacques is such a sweetheart.
He was. I've got to reiterate what you've just said, man. I had him for an hour. Amazing. Humble, mate.
Couldn't meet a nicer guy.
Humble, no attitude, mate. Another one who gets overlooked. Man. What he accomplished in the business. Sorry.
100%, sure. Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I've always loved tag team wrestling. So the Rougeau brothers were, one of my favorites.
The whole, Fabulous Rougeaus will bring American flags out. It drew the heat, man. It drew the heat. They knew exactly what they were doing. And they had Jimmy Hart beside them, man.
I'm about to drive through a tunnel to go into Manhattan. So I may lose you.
Okay. We can close out, man. We can close out, right? Just in closing, where people can find you on social media. Just a quick plug, mate.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. My Facebook is mainly for personal use. So that's off key. But check me out on Instagram or Twitter. Damien Darling. I'm around.
Perfect. My guest, all the way from the good old US of A in New York, it is a wrestling veteran, Mr. Damien Darling on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Enjoyed it. Loved it.
Thank you, Stu. It was enjoyable. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Thank you so much to Damien there for all his insight and his viewpoints on wrestling and what he went through as well. And it was lovely coming off the topic of wrestling. Sometimes I find I pigeonhole myself with guests, so it's nice to go on to the topic of music. And he loves Guns N' Roses. He's seen them many times, so it's just cool. So come off the topic of wrestling. I really like that. I like being able to talk about other stuff, and I like other sport as well, so it's always nice to ask the guests about things like that. So yeah, there you have it. That was Damien Darling. This is the end of episode 123 of SWP, Stu's Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back very, very soon for episode 124. See you all soon.